Give me your first impressions of these matchups for next week's playoff round in that wild card weekend.
I mean, this is just going to be short and sweet, guys, because we're going to get into our full dive later this week into the analysis of each game. But regardless, it's going to just happen the way that I see it, like this in the NFC. San Francisco, best team in the conference by far. Not even close. I know that Philly has the 1 seed. If Philly would have lost today, San Fran would have 100% gotten it. So let's just put that into context. But despite whoever comes out of this game, in terms of if Green Bay wins, if Detroit wins, whoever comes out of this particular matchup, I think San Fran's taking that no matter what. I think if it's Seattle, I think that San Francisco walks all over them. I think Green Bay gives them a little bit more of a headache because of how much of a streak Green Bay ended the season on, because of what they did to Green Bay last year. So that the taste in Green Bay's mouth, I know Aaron Rodgers definitely did not forget that struggle of a game that they had last year in the postseason. So I think that that would be a little bit more competitive. I think that San Francisco comes out no matter what. That defense is swarming. Brock Purdy's playing incredible. Deebo Samuel is back. I mean, the connection that Brock has developed with George Kittle as well has just been it's been great, especially with the run game of CMC just looking like CMC from a couple of years ago before all the injuries. I think San Francisco is going to walk away with this game again, despite no matter who comes out as the 7 seed. Now, when you look at the 3 and the 6, it's a little bit more confusing for me just because Minnesota's had some games where they look good, then they've had some games where they get shit on. New York is a team that you can really rally behind, with Daniel Jones having a resurgent fourth year in the league. Saquon Barkley's looked relatively well this year. The pass rush of the Giants has looked really good. So, I mean, I would say that this would be a closer game, but just for the sake of best receiver in the league, Justin Jefferson, the Giants do not have a shutdown, lockdown corner like a Darius Slay or a Sauce Gardner. I think that this game ends up going away. I think that Dalvin Cook ends up running all over the Giants, and I think that Kirk Cousins finally can move on to that next round of the divisional. And I think that the Vikings are going to pull off that W in Minnesota. I wouldn't be surprised if New York gives them a hard time because, again, the pass rush and the weakness of the offensive line of Minnesota. So I'll kind of just leave it at that. And then the 4 and the 5 seed, I think that Dallas loses. I don't care how it happens. I don't care when it happens. I don't give a shit if the Cowboys don't even show up. I don't have any faith in them. Granted, this Buccaneers team has been the epitome of inconsistent with the offensive line struggles, the offensive woes of not being able to run the football, Tom Brady being sacked a couple different times, him being careless with the football the last couple of weeks and the year. I personally do not have faith in Dak Prescott to lead a team into a Super Bowl. Like Kyle said earlier in the segment, I don't see Dallas. If Dallas does, by some miracle of God and whatever it is you believe in, and they beat Tampa at home, they're done the next week, depending on who they play. Just because, again, like I said, the inconsistencies at the offensive line could pose to be a favorable matchup for Micah Parsons and that pass rush of the Cowboys to decide to wake up. That could be the spark plug to at least revitalize Dallas on the offensive side as well, because if they're forcing turnovers on Tom Brady, that's giving Dak more opportunities to score on the offensive side. But to flip it, Tom Brady is Tom Brady. That is literally all I have to say. The Bucs defense has been playing better as of late. Today was an outlier because they rested most of their starters after the first quarter, so it didn't really make a difference because they had solidified their seeding as the 4. So I wouldn't look too much into this week, but in terms of Dallas going into the playoffs, doesn't look good for them. Brady was rested. They're going to be fine. I think that the Buccaneers win a close one. I just think between both offenses struggling lately, I think the Bucs win a close one, but I have the Buccaneers moving on to face the Philadelphia Eagles in the next round.
Yeah, and then to flip it over to the AFC now that Kev finished the NFC for the wild card weekend, I'll go over the AFC wild card matchups. So at the number 2 seed, we have the Buffalo Bills going up against the 7 seeded Miami Dolphins. This will be the third time that both teams have played each other since they're both division rivals. I think the Bills win this one fairly convincingly. When it comes to the Dolphins, they have too many injury issues at the quarterback position. We don't know Tua's status going into next week. I would assume that he's going to play. Um, if he weren't, I don't even think that Teddy Bridgewater is going to play. So there's a lot of question marks when it comes to Miami. They did not look convincing in their Week 18 win against the Jets. Nonetheless, it was enough to make the playoffs. But going up against a team like the Buffalo Bills with the emotional backing that they have from Damar Hamlin right now, I think the Bills are going to be a tough out. I don't see the Buffalo losing that game at home to the Dolphins. I think the Bills pretty much run away with that one. That defense is way too vaunted going up against a Dolphins offense that is relatively lackluster right now. And even if you were to put Tua in that situation, I just don't see Miami going up to Buffalo and winning that game. So I got the Buffalo Bills advancing to the divisional round. To kick it to the 3 seed, the Cincinnati Bengals will be going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Kind of similar to what I just outlined with the Bills. I think the Bengals are going to be a tough out as well. And I think going up against the Ravens, I think they will win this one fairly convincingly. Even though that it is a divisional rival game, this will be the third time that they've played each other this year. I just have way too many question marks with the Ravens. There's a good chance that Lamar Jackson can play in this wild card round against the Bengals. But even if that's the case, I don't know what his status is going to be. Is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be 80, 90%? We don't really know. Just because he could potentially play, it doesn't guarantee anything for the Ravens in this one. Their offense has been relatively lackluster this year. Their defense has been spotty. And going up against a team like the Bengals have been one of the better teams in the second half in the NFL this entire season. And they damn near got the number 2 seed had the Bills lost to the Patriots in week 18. Joe Burrow looks like he is getting back into that rhythm, very similar to what what the Bengals were able to establish last year that got them all the way to the Super Bowl. The Bengals are going to be a very tough out. Low key, they could be another dark horse team that can make a Super Bowl this year. So in this game in particular, I think the Bengals win this one fairly convincingly against the Ravens. And then to kick it to the 4 and 5 matchup, we got the 4-seeded Jacksonville Jaguars going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Jags are going to be home for this game. But to be quite honest with you, I did not see a convincing statement from the Jaguars against the Titans in that game. It took a forced fumble late in the fourth quarter for the Jaguars to get that win. And Joshua Dobbs, who has been moving around the NFL this year from team to team, damn near beat the Jags when the Jags needed that game to get into the playoffs. Now, granted, the Jags won that game, but to me, there's still some issues that I see with Jacksonville. Their defense is no joke. Their defense has stepped up time and time again. And I think if Trevor Lawrence can establish good consistency on the offense, I think it could potentially lead to a win. When it comes to the Chargers lost to the Broncos in the last week of the year, but Mike Williams hurt his back in that game, got carted off the field. And we don't know what his status is going to be going into next week's game against the Jags. So it depends on what sort of Chargers team we get against the Jags. Are we going to see a team where that defense can step up and get some turnovers? Can Justin Herbert put 2 to 3 touchdowns on the board, throw for 300, 350 yards passing? Can Austin Eckler be effective out of the backfield? There's a lot of question marks with the Chargers right now. I'm actually going to pick the Chargers in this one. I don't have a lot of faith. This is a game where, to be quite honest with you, it could go either way. I could see Jacksonville winning this one in a very close game. I could see the Chargers winning this one in a close game. I just think at the end of the day, I think Justin Herbert is going to step up and make the plays that needed to be made over Trevor Lawrence. And I think that's going to be the difference maker. The Chargers defense has been shaky at times, and them giving up 30 points to the Denver Broncos in the last week of the year is indicative of that. But I do believe that the Chargers defense is going to be able to step up, make some plays, force some turnovers against Trevor Lawrence, and then I think the Chargers squeak by, and I mean squeak by it, against the Jaguars to potentially move to the divisional round. So I think it's going to be an action-packed wild card weekend nonetheless, but just to kind of round out the AFC portion, I've got the Bills advancing to the divisional round, I've got the Bengals advancing, and then I also have the Chargers advancing as well. But I think it's going to be an awesome wild card weekend, and I can't wait for it to happen next weekend.